Awesome. So we're live right now with Grownup Navajo founder Jaclyn, and I'm the director of a nonprofit called Indigenous Lifeways, and we're so happy to be able to hold this space to talk about and learn more about how to make our traditional Diné bun, which is called a Tsiiyéeł. And Jaclyn, she's way more fluent in Navajo about the actual Diné term for the actual hair tie. And, you know, there's so much teachings that go along with how we wear our traditional hair. And I'm just really looking forward to this discussion. In the past, we've done in-person hair tie making and, you know, having the young girls make their buns. But today, because of, you know, the times of COVID, you know, this is a lot more accessible for folks to really have a conversation with you today, for folks who registered through Zoom. And also this video will be on YouTube for folks to refer to in the future. But, you know, this is, you know, such a great time to learn more about our culture. You know, these past few years, we've, you know, been at home, and, you know, I hope folks had the opportunity and had some time to really do some self-learning and educate themselves on, you know, new things or refresh their memories on our traditional ways. It's such an important time to, you know, go back to our roots, and, you know, really how Jaclyn is with her fashion, you know, and adding that traditional touch to it is so important. That mix is a beautiful way to really express ourselves as just people. And, you know, I think having this type of discussion today will uplift that and bring out that Indigenous woman warrior and go out there and, you know, flaunt your jewelry, flaunt your hairstyle. And I'm just like, when I'm like, gosh, I should have put my hair in a bun today. But I'm so thankful for Jaclyn's time. This is her fourth workshop with Indigenous Lifeways, and, you know, I just recommend, you know, checking her Instagram out, checking her blog out. You know, she has so much incredible content. She also has a journal, and I mean, she's multi-talented. So I really just express our appreciation for her time these past few workshops. And yeah, just hoping today is just another great day as always with Jaclyn. But I'm just going to turn it over to you at this point. But thank you again, everyone, for joining us.
Yes, Yata Bana, everyone, Yata Shikathel Shadana, Shahat, Crystal, for again just the invitation. It's been a wonderful series of conversations and presentations. I really enjoyed it, and to talk about the Kinalda, to talk about the matriarchy, to even take my first steps into food demonstration. I think I've given only one other food demonstration before, and that was a green chili, like salsa verde. But this was really, really special. And that was like that was a one-time thing, but the blue corn mush was really fun because it's one of my favorite meals. And so this has just been wonderful. So Hiahat to you and Indigenous Lifeways for the invitation to be a part of this series of programs. Yat Jaclyn Roessel Yenshia Techit Ninishla Kia Ani Vashichin Toda Koja Dashache do Bilgana Deshnella Look at your adults and a Canada Nasha. It is wonderful to be with you all. I am of the Red Running Into the Water clan, born for the Towering House people. My late maternal grandfather was of the Bitterwater clan, or the Saltwater clan, excuse me. And I lost my train of thought. My late paternal grandfather is of the Monteith clan from Scotland, and my last name is Roessel, which is actually German. So I'm Diné, German, and Scottish, and am really delighted to be here. I grew up in a family that really believed and instilled in me the importance of cultural knowledge, that my grandparents in particular told all of us grandchildren that it was really our culture that was going to make us stronger, that was going to make us successful. And that was definitely something that I um, grew to understand more and more when I left Kayenta. That's where I graduated from high school at, to leave for the res. I went to Arizona State University, and it was really a big transition for me to move from the res to the city. I mean, as you all know, growing up in the communities that we do, we're used to driving really far places in between to get to, border towns or to go get groceries or to even just see family. And so that was, we as a family would travel to Phoenix. And so it wasn't that Phoenix was new to me, but it was that feeling of being on my own that was new to me, and taking care of just myself, especially as the oldest of 4 children. So I really depended on my phone calls back home, my phone calls with my grandparents to see how they were doing. And it was in the process of meeting other people in college that I really realized that there were a lot of things like I still wanted to learn and that I was really curious about. And I kind of slowly started to challenge myself to not let the distance between where I was and where home was be a barrier to my learning. And so I would carry a notebook with me that would have all my questions for my late Melissa. And I would ask her all different kinds of things, like, why do we do this? Or why do we do that? Or like, I learned that this other community does these types of things. Do we have anything that is like that? And so just like taking observations as I was learning and meeting new people in college really helped me carve out like just how important my culture was to me. And slowly as I left and graduated from ASU, I really began to see all the ways that there were just so many misunderstandings like of our people, which wasn't always something I was exposed to growing up in all like Native school. Like that wasn't really my full understanding. And so I came into Grownup Navajo really as a process of grieving. I lost my late Melissa 10 years ago now, and I was really scrambling to understand just how I was going to keep learning. It was a really unexpected loss for our family, and I was really shaken by just losing somebody who in my mind was really integral in me understanding who I was as a Diné. And I decided in the process, I was at the same time, just prior to her passing, was toying with like, whoa, what I want to start a blog. Like I've always loved to write. And I was trying to figure out like what it was going to be. But when she passed, and then I realized that it had to be about like my culture and like who I was. And so Grownup Navajo, while it's my business now, it actually started as a blog. And in it really, in the beginning, was really focused on the things that my grandmothers taught me, the things that I wanted to remember, and was just a way for me to process. And in the journey of since that start 10 years ago, what actually has grown is the recognition that there are so many other people who have identified with that path, that same process of grieving, that same transition, and even people who are living away from our homelands for a variety of different reasons, who don't have access to cultural teachers or just cultural knowledge. And so Grownup Navajo has always continued to try to be a place to share what I know and connect with other people who might know a little bit more. And then what has also grown, because I love arts and culture, I actually learned quite a lot about other communities and really realizing that there's so much relationality between all of Indigenous people. Not that we believe in the same things or that our ceremonies look the same, but that at our core, our understanding and our values and our practices are actually really aligned with one another. And so sometimes I make comparisons there because while I grew up on the res, I actually make my home and have made my home in other Indigenous community homelands. So the lands of the O'odham people were very, very fond, loving places for me. That's where I feel like I really kind of grew up. That's where I went to school and had my first job. And then I fell in love with a Pueblo man, and now I live in his homelands on his reservation in the Pueblo of Tamaya. And so this is where I raised my children, and this is also where I've been learning what it means to parent children who are from two different communities, and also really committed, like as a mother, for them to know, particularly in the pandemic, for them to know and hear as much of the language as I can speak, as much of the language and culture that like I know. And I didn't grow up speaking fluently, but I have come to understand my journey as being somebody who really doesn't want to let the barriers, for all the different reasons, whether it's colonization, whether it's, you know, funds to be able to travel home, for all the different things that make it difficult to connect with culture, that I wasn't going to just let those be the barriers to my learning. And so to me, grown up Navajo and being a grown up is owning what I can and doing what I can where I am. And so that is, I think, a really key part of the journey of what brings us here today in terms of the showing the tsiiyéeł, the hair tie, and how that relates to the distinct hairstyle that we have as Diné people of the Tsiiyéeł. And I really learned, and I don't remember how many years it's been now, maybe it was 2015, 2016 or so. I started practicing making my own tsiiyéeł. And at first, you know, up until that point, you know, it was always such a joy to have like my aunties or my mom, you know, just like the care that it was for them to fix my hair, you know, for graduation or special occasions or for going someplace, you know, I'm like, oh, can you make my hair in a tsiiyéeł? And, you know, having them tie it and so forth. And after a while, I thought, I really want to know how, I really want to do this myself. And I can do it. Like I can do this. And so I actually started practicing, and I would post them like on Instagram, like my videos. And in the beginning, my hair was like really tushy. Like I had all these like hairs just sticking out. Right. And I thought, it's okay. Like, it's all right. Like we're still learning, like we're still practicing, like it's important. And, and so over time, I got enough courage to decide to do a tsiiyéeł hair tie demo, and I just filmed it. My sister helped me; she was my camera woman, and so she helped me just kind of show a little bit of the way that you tie a hair. And it was amazing how that one video, I posted it to our YouTube channel, just caught a lot of people's attention. It was really exciting, and people started making it and like making their own tsiiyéeł and then tagging us. And then we started on Grownup Navajo a Tsiiyéeł Tuesday. And so it was really like, again, this way of like just showing like cultural pride, like showing that whatever day of the week it was, whether it was Tuesday or not, like you can make your own hair tie. It doesn't have to be for these distinct occasions that we sometimes like hold off like on showing off our culture, right? That it was really like there are so many other ways that we like integrate who we are as Diné people into our everyday. And so that was something that was really the influence behind it, but it was so exciting. And I would get these incredible emails from, you know, people who adopted Diné children and were like, well, this is so amazing. Like I was really excited to like share like how to do this because I didn't grow up like in the community, you know. And so it was really exciting to to see people who are really who are being motivated by it too. And so we don't always do CS Tuesday anymore, but people still like make their own CS. And a key part of making your CS is having a tsiiyéew. And I brought a couple different variations. So tsiiyéews are the hair ties that we use, and these are all my adult size ones. So these are approximately like 42 inches or so long. This one here is from hand spun wool. And then this is the last one that I made. It was quite some time ago. Somebody had gifted me some hand spun wool, and I decided to make a tsiiyéew. And I think it was like for Diné New Year, I realized that I was using this one. This one is very well loved. It's cotton or acrylic. It's acrylic yarn, but it's super, I don't know if you can see it, it's like super twishy. I've worn it a lot. But I decided, I'm like, no, like I need a new one. So must have been like 6 years ago or 7 years ago, I made this one, and I had been trying to decide what I was going to do with the yarn that was given to me. And so this is that one. In terms of like the significance that Crystal was mentioning, I'm certain that people watching probably have been in the position, particularly when you're younger and you come in from outside and you've been told by your aunties or your relatives, like, why is your hair just everywhere? Why is it not tied up? And I would always get that comment from my grandma, my late Melissa in particular. She would always kind of scold me and sometimes tease me and say, I loved in high school, I loved wearing my hair down. I had like the curled bangs, right? Like, so it was like a thing, like it was a look to have like my long hair hanging down and then the bangs. And I'd feel so happy and excited. And then I'd get home, and when my grandma was visiting, she'd be like, like, why is your hair not tied up? And she would say that it's really important. It's really important that you take care of your hair. You go tie it up. So then me and my sister would begrudgingly go and like brush our hair and then like put it in a ponytail or, put it out of our way so that it was tied. But as I learned over and over after that happening again, I think that one of the things that became clear was just the understanding that like our hair as people, like and regardless of gender, like our hair contains our thoughts, right? Like you hear the teaching like that they are a symbol of the thoughts that we have. And so when you're not taking care of your hair, when it's just flying freely, that you can be scattered, you can be forgetful, you can even sometimes they say like, if you really don't take care of your hair, and this connects to other things too, but that you can start to develop like other challenges and things that we have names for now in terms just different types of like mental illness. I'm not saying that if you wear your hair, like that's going to cause that, but just the recognition that like we take care of our body. There are teachings in Diné culture. You take care of your body. You treat it with kindness. You treat it with love. You say good things to it. And I think all the time about what we're told as Diné people inherently from the beginning of this world is now just being backed up by science, right? This understanding of like cultivating mental wellness is actually, we hear those things if you read articles about how do you boost your mood, or you're talking about health and spiritual like balance and wellness. Well, actually, all of those things that we read in these English studies, our ancestors have known for always. And so these things like you be kind to yourself, today we call them positive affirmations, right? Our brains are inherently like we have negativity bias. So our brains want to tell us what's wrong with ourselves always. And we also, when we're looking out in the world, we want to find what's wrong always. Like it's our human negativity bias. And so our teachings actually help us to combat that those inclinations that we have as human beings to help us care for ourselves. You know, the getting up early, having intention, where we can look at that epistemology of how we're supposed to be in our whole lives, understanding that we are interconnected with the living world. And so our Tsiiyéeł and our Tsiiyéeł are a huge extension of that. And that care of ourselves is really what it ties to, that personal care. And so we say, and I didn't bring my hairbrush, but we also have our hairbrush, right? And so you have your own hairbrush that you get oftentimes at your puberty ceremony, your kemalda, which is like the rabbit brush with the with the I can't think of what they're called, like the little fluffies like at the end, but basically, like, you know, like that particular hairbrush is something that is with us, and we are always told to, like, take time, like, even though we live in a modern world, take time to like brush your hair with that. You know, my grandmas would always say, like, when you make time for that, like, you help your hair to stay nice and dark and black. You know, that you help you're telling your hair, you're stimulating the growth of your hair, and so that it will stay like on your head longer. And there are a lot of like practices around beauty that we hear, like within the Kinalda ceremony too. You know, the way that the young girl's hair is tied in front of her hair, you know, we say don't move it back out of the side, because the teaching, or what my family would say, is that that's then where you start to go bald. If you start to move your hair like that, then you run the risk of like that, creating that. And I often tell different people when I'm talking about Diné culture, I said some people look at it and it's categorized, especially if you read like non-native writers like Tony Hillerman, it's categorized as like really superstitious. Like, oh, Diné people are so superstitious. And actuality, I think that's a miscategorization and a sensationalization of our teachings. We believe in supreme honjo, in supreme balance. And we understand that when you have an imbalance, that can have ripple effects and cause other things to happen, right? And so in essence, we live and understand in the recognition of this natural order and of cause and effect. You know, when you are in, you know, ceremony, you don't practice certain teachings or certain things, like, oh, then we have things that you do to correct that, to establish balance again, to help restore and rejuvenate. And so I think that that's important to hold too. So as I just wanted to share that too, because sometimes like when we're listening to our elders, sometimes you're like, I know I was like that when I was younger. I was like, like, what are they saying? And now, especially with my children, I'm like, no, we don't do that. Like, you know, let's eat over here. Let's do that. Like certain practices where I'm like, oh, like I forgot that I even remembered some of the things that we do, but it's not because we're superstitious. And to me, superstition makes it seem as though it's not based in reality, and that's not the case. There's our direct teachings and things that come from like our creation stories and other lessons and other stories that tell us exactly why we treat ourselves in a certain way, and we treat others in the world around us in a very specific way. And so I think that's important. Our hair is our thought, so we take care of it, and we have been given the tsiiyéew as a tool to help us. And I think it's also important to note that both men and women, whatever your gender, like that they would use the tsiiyéew, they would have Tsiiyéeł too. It'd be tied differently. And this is one of the distinctions, I think, depending on where you're from, like on the res, like there are ways in which you tie your hair. Even to the point that I've heard some families, like their aunties and grandmas won't let them have a bun that's higher up, you know, that they want it to be low, that sometimes those distinctions can mean that you're single or that you're married. And so you kind of have to do some investigation about, like, you know, what are the practices in your own family, your understanding like of how your family makes this. Yes, I think that what is important to note too is that the actual tsiiyéeł is white, right? And so when we think about our bodies, our being, the order of the world as we see it through a Diné cosmovision, that white is representative of the feminine side, and it is really our protection. It is the protection of our thoughts, the protection of our body and our minds. And there are teachings that relate to the beginning, like, of our day, like the white dawn, like Hayos Kaf, right? Like the beginning. And so it's the preparedness, the things that, like, I've come to know about it. Like, it's the preparedness, you're getting ready, you intentionally are in this, when we're looking at the belief system of Sa'anagad Kahonjo, it is the thinking time, it's the preparing. When I'm making my CS, it is one of the most mindful moments that I can have in a day, because all I want to do is just take care of my hair. And even when I'm brushing my hair, even if I don't wear a CS, I really try to be intentional with that start of the day and just being thoughtful about what I'm telling myself. And I learned from uh, reading around this understanding of, the first 30 minutes of our day we have great neuroplasticity. We can tell ourselves things that are really absorbed really well into our brain, right? And into ourselves. And so I try, and it's not perfect, but I try in the mornings when I wake up to be really intentional with that 30 minutes. I try to be really intentional with the start of my day. And that time of brushing my hair and tying my hair is part of that. So our tsiiyéeł is really a way to, like, care and, like, wrap our hair as part of our CS. It's really significant. And we also know too, like, our relatives there are public communities, they have a similar hairstyle, they have other hair wraps that they use that are more akin to kind of what sash belts might look like, that they're woven. And so ours are a little bit different. They're I guess traditionally, or would be made from wool, but you can use, again, what's available to you. I have seen individuals make different colored ones, and this is, I think, a practice depending on your family and the teachings that you have. I've heard some families say, like, it's really important for us to keep the tsiiyéeł white, that in and of itself keeps it tied to its original teachings in terms of connecting us to dawn, connecting us to that particular story of, like, the getting set for the day and being prepared in that. But you might come from a family where it is completely okay for you to wear other color tsiiyéeŭs. So just understand, like, your own teachings. We sometimes forget that, like, our Diné community is so spread out that in that geography, there are so many different ways of knowing and ways of being, and even just ways of speaking, right? Like, there are so many distinctions in how we practice our culture, but it's all umbrellaed under the same philosophy. So just, again, it's an opportunity to have a conversation with your loved ones. And in terms of care, I think that it's helpful that if you have an acrylic hair tie, you can hand wash them. But with my wool ones, I tend not to do that. But I think being able to store it, because it is wool, with some cedar, like, that helps the moths not get it. So there are a couple ways that you can make this. The last tsiiyéeŭ that I made was actually just using knots. So as you can see from here, these are just knotted on both sides. As I said, this particular one is 48 inches long. And the essential thing is they're actually really simple to make. So you are just wrapping the yarn around, and depending on, it's better to do it with somebody else. And I think my sister or my mom helped me make this one. I don't remember. Um, but if you have something like the back of a chair, you can loop around. I'm going to be showing you how to make one like on my forearm, because I'm actually going to make one like a child size one. So you can decide like what size you're making it. The other thing I'll say is that my grandma would tell me that it was really important to not make them big. She used to say that there was a trend in like growing up where people would have really thick tsiiyéeł, like really thick, like this thick, and then would wrap their hair, and so their buns would be really, really, really big. And she just said that and I don't know exactly why, but she just said it's not necessary for it to be like that it doesn't have to be that fluffy. Again, thinking about the women in your life and like your perspective, I have very fine hair. And so I like, because I will do everything in my CS. So like I'll go running, I'll go do, I'll have it and I want it on and close to like my head so that it's tight and snug. It really depends on like what you're going to do. And, if you're running for Miss Navajo, that's a different type of CF, because those are so beautifully fanned out and always look so pretty. And I feel like every Miss Navajo I know has like super thick hair, and I've always like loved the way that looks. So it really is up to you and like the style that the women in your family or the people in your family, how they make their hair ties. So I am going to show you. So this is the yarn that I'm going to use. I'm actually using some hand-spun wool, and this is just a big skein that you pick up like at a trading post. This is this is wool, and I'm just going to start by holding it in my hand. And since I'm making this for a child, I am only going to do a few loops, because I don't want it to be too thick, like too chunky. And hold on, a bit of a knot forming here. And so again, just thinking positive thoughts, everything we make, I always try to be intentional when I'm doing little things for myself or for my family or loved ones, just being intentional about that time. Let me see, how many times did I go for? I lost count. That's 5. So you can kind of guesstimate, like, again, thinking about the kind of hairstyle you want. How thick do you want it? What do you want it to kind of look like and kind of play with a little bit? So, all right, so we're gonna think this is 4. Okay, so I'm gonna do 8. I think I'm gonna do 10. I have one more loop, trying to get past this little knot that I made. So I'm gonna do 10. So you're gonna do around. So I'm gonna cut this. So this is kind of what it looks like. All right. I'm gonna cut this here. That's where I have the other end. And then, so because I had that knot that got a little wonky, but I'm gonna kind of move it around a little bit so that it can kind of even out. And you want to end where you had the start. So I didn't say that, but as you're wrapping, if you had the top part here and you're holding it, you go around, you want to cut it and end it in the same place so that the ends are together. And so you are going to tie. We're going to try something a little different today. So we're going to tie this together. Just a small knot. You're just going to tie it here. So this is what it looks like, okay? So you can kind of play with it a little bit so that I have one piece here that's kind of loose. So I'm going to try to move it so that they all have the same tightness. At least try to get it close so that they all kind of feel the same. You might have to pull it and adjust it a little bit. And that's pretty good. Again, I'm a recovering perfectionist. My whole mindset is I do it with a good heart and good intentions. I'm not gonna overthink it. I'm not gonna talk to myself negatively about how this could have looked different. All right. So that's my encouragement to everyone. And so as I showed, the one that I made it a simple, just a knot at the end. But what we're gonna try to do together is do this variation, which is actually, this is all one big piece. You see that? So it's all one big circle. And then what are on the bottom here are actually little tassels. And so we're going to make the kind that we're making is going to be like that. So, so what we're going to do, so this is the full loop, but this is the style that we're going to make. All right. So you're going to kind of put it to the side, the part that we just measured out, and you can put it down. I just have mine on here because I don't want it to get lost in all this yarn that's now covering. And so for this, like what we're going to do, this one's, again, this is an adult size, and I'm going to make one for a younger child. This size, and I can tell you how. Have a measuring tape here. The version that I have is 48 inches, and this is 14. This one here, the one that I'm working on. So let me see. I think I can put that there. So what we're gonna do, and I can measure this particular tassel. So this tassel here is 11 inches. So I know that I'm not gonna make a tassel that's 11 inches. You might want to. So you can think about how far. That means that when you're making your hair tie, that's the part that's coming down, like at the end, right? So that one's that one's a little bit longer. All right. So if you don't want it that long, you're like, I'm gonna do half of that. This one here, the one that I made with the last one I made with the knots, this particular one is 6 inches. So that might, if that feels good to you, like, so that's, half. So I'm probably going to do about, what did I say? It's 10. So I'm probably going to do about 6 inches for the one that I just made, just to see how that looks. Again, if this is like the first time you're making it, like, then it's all right. Like, we're learning together. And so what we're going to do is, let me just kind of feel it out here real quick, because I think I have an idea of what. Okay. So 6 inches is about here. And so I'm just going to try to wrap it a little bit around my watch. This is improvisation. And so you're just going to loop it. You're going to make those tassels in a loop again. And you probably, so I did 10 rounds of the larger one. So you'll probably want to do less than what you did before. So I'd say like 5 to 6, so that they're kind of approximately the same thickness. All right. All right, so then once you have your, don't cut anything yet. Okay, I think, yeah, I might just do 8. So I'm going to do 8. I'm going to do a couple more loops and I can show you. So, all right. So this is the end, right? So that's what it looks like. And now what you can do is you can then cut from the end there. All right. And then we're going to cut this part here. Is that right? Yeah, and we can cut that part. So again, try to cut it in between where you should have 2 ends. I can show you here. So you have this end and here's the other. So here are your 2 ends of your piece, and you're going to cut as close to the middle as possible. So like this down, right? So you have these little tassels. All right, like that. And then what you're going to do is we are going to grab the larger piece. I'm not sure exactly what the technical term is for this, but you're going to loop. I don't know what kind of knot, I guess it's not really a slip knot. But you are going to loop this around, hold on. So you're going to loop it around where the knot was, where we have the knot in it, and that's going to be the first placement of our tie. And so what we're doing is we're just pulling this through like that. So we're pulling that over the edge of where we had that knot in the larger loop. Does that make sense? So this is what it looks like further back. Yes, exactly, Crystal. Yep, exactly. Yep. And so you can decide if you think, and you don't have to decide this like right this instance, but on the one that I have, and I didn't make this last one that I had, somebody else did. The way that this person did it, they then did a tie across. So after they did that slip, they did basically knotted it with a piece of string. So you can decide if you think that you might need that. If you don't, you don't have to. It's really up to you. But also, like on mine, I have a little bit of enough string that I'm like, oh, I might be able to do a really tiny knot there. Let me see. I'm not sure. But again, that's just for safety so that like your tassel doesn't come out or come undone. I was able to get a knot in there. And so this is then what it looks like. And so mine has, I left the longer part out right there. So it looks a little messy. I'm not gonna sweat it. I might trim it just a little bit. But yeah, so then that's the bottom. And then all we're gonna do is just repeat that on the other end. So we won't trim this until we're completely done with the whole thing. All right. So this is like what the effect is of it on that one side. So that's what it looks like. And then we can make the other one. So we're gonna take the end of our string again. And I believe I did 8. And if you're looking for more of like a Hustine style, if you can, oftentimes the Hustine variation doesn't have thick, long tassels like that. So oftentimes it's a small knot, and then they're woven tightly so that they're actually not hanging down. But the style is essentially the same. So I'm going to do the next one. So I just did 8, 3, 4. So I did the same number. So you're just going to do the same thing for the other one. You can cut it in the middle. And then it's ready to be looped around. All right. So this is, then it's all tied. Again, this one is a little one. And you can see on this end, the way I looped it was a little bit uneven in a couple places. But again, it was done with the best intentions that I had, right, in navigating it. And it's optional if you want to put that, I have wool in my mouth. If you want to put that little safety string like on the bottom so that it ties that tassel here, that's up to you. If you feel like, oh, it keeps coming out, or, I mean, I don't think you would lose your tassel, but you know, if you're really worried about it, you could always tie it at the bottom. But for the most part, again, this is, again, a baby girl, or well, that's why I'm making it for a baby girl. But you can decide like, oh, like, okay, like now I know like that's that thick, or, and then when you make it and like wrap your hair, or wrap another person's hair around it, you're like, oh, like I know next time I actually am going to do fewer wraps, right? Or I'm going to make it less thick. So it's really like up to you on the style of CF that you are making, and like the age of like who you're making it for, right? Like that will all determine like the distance. The last thing you'll want to do is just kind of trim the ends. So if you want, so if mines are a little bit uneven, so I'm just going to kind of trim some of the ends off. I don't want too much waste, but I want them to look like even when the hair's tied. So this is, again, this one's like a super young, super young CS. But that's really like, that's it. If you were looking for a style that's a little, that doesn't have those extra loops, or you're just looking to make one like really quick, like this style is completely fine. And that's just a knotted end. All right. And really, when you're making it this way, you're just making sure that that the knots are in the same place and that they're even. And so then all you have to do is make your CS. And so to do that, I always say if you wear makeup, I had to learn the hard way a couple times. I really love wearing red lipstick, but I would put it on before making my CS, and then I had to hold it with my teeth because I was too afraid of my red lipstick getting on my teeth glove. So be conscious of if you wear lipstick, be conscious of when you put it on. But all you do is put it then in your mouth if you're tying it for yourself, right? And then I'm gonna wrap it. And here, let me turn this way. So you wrap it, what is that? Clockwise. The one on your right, you wrap it clockwise around your bun. And then this one is gonna go the opposite way. And if I've done it right, I'll wrap it one time and then it is able to be tied right here, like that. And then the fun part, then you get to pull and adjust your hair.
You're so skilled. I'm like, it takes me so many times.
I was really nervous.
I was like, that is so pretty. I was like, you're just one and done. Usually my arms are just all like, oh gosh, gotta shake it out. But it's those little tips, making sure you do this before you do your makeup, all those little things, like you don't really like know until you go through it. And like, even just like wearing your moccasins when it's raining outside, and like things like that, you don't know until it happens. It's just like, oh my gosh.
Totally. Yeah. And also like I cut my hair in the middle of the pandemic by myself. So I was like, I hope that like it, stays. I was a little nervous, but it works and it stays. And I think like if you have layers, that's my other tip. Like if you have layers, you want to fold your hair more tightly than you would if you have like really long hair and it's all one length, because it's able, like you're just able to do like pull it out a little bit easier. And there's nothing wrong with having to do it like one more time. My auntie Lorenda showed me a trick too, that if you have a lot of layers but you really want your bun to not be like pokey and like expand out, that you can get those little mini hair nets and then put a hairnet on like underneath here and then tuck it in, pin it into the bottom of your skin, or like up on top, and then that keeps it kind of secured too. So that's a hot tip too. That might be helpful to some people, because then you don't have to worry. You want to wrap it tightly, and then you can kind of fix it and move it like afterwards. But I love a messy bun. I love a messy CS. I think that no matter how you wear it, it's that it continues is really beautiful. And I hope that people are able to follow along and can watch again just with how to do it, how to make a tsiiyéew. and then how to make your tsiiyéew, and don't be afraid. I'm trying again. Like that, it was literally, it took several different like times for me to just play with my hair and to just try it. I also think the other thing too is like I don't wash my hair every day as an eco choice, but also like as it makes it easier for me to do things like put my hair up in a tsiiyéew because there's more grease and like more texture and things aren't just like fluffy and like flying around. So keep that in mind too. And yeah, like just again, play with it and try it. And I hope that this was helpful to people. I've gotten requests to do Tsiiyéew demonstration, and I still have all this wool in my hair. I'm in my mouth. But I hadn't yet done it. So it's just really exciting that this gets to live on digitally for other people to use. And yeah, I'm just so grateful to Indigenous Lifeways for the invitation to join you all today.
Oh, thank you, Jaclyn, so much. I don't have hand spun yarn like you do, but I'm going to get some. And even for the folks that have been joining us today, I'm hoping that we're able to give some out in some care packages along with your So also with the blue corn too. So we're going to be giving out, so you guys can refer back to the videos and actually do some at home teachings with your family. But this one, I'm hoping I hope it fits my little girl, but I have another little niece I could give it to. We have like a bunch of nieces, so it'll get some good use. And this style that you did was so awesome. I'm used to just tying it at the end, but this is just incredible. Thank you so much for your teachings and really emphasizing what hajol means, from just being how you look and those intentions that you do every single day. It's so important just to have those teachings in this world of chaos, and everything seems like it's against you. But when you have these things to remind you, your jewelry, your culture, it's just really good that, like you said, it's those connections that keeps us who we are, keeps us unique. So thank you so much for joining us, and I hope to hopefully in the future see you in person and do another workshop. And you're so incredible. I know tomorrow Jaclyn has another event with Native Women Lead, so definitely check her events out on her Instagram pages. But yes, thank you so much for the folks joining in today on Zoom and everyone watching us on YouTube. So thank you so much again.
Yeah, absolutely. I had so much, and take care, everyone.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. Hagona. Hagona.
Oh.